Mr. Kosha, I'll start with you. One of the things that we did in the bipartisan infrastructure law was to expand and add up to 39 corridor routes to serve some cities that are connected, say, rural areas to urban areas. I've always been, of course, a big fan of the Empire Builder route that goes through the Twin Cities. Could you talk about those two issues? First of all, improving and maintaining passenger rail on routes that connect rural to urban. And then secondly, the Empire Builder, and specifically, which is Chicago, of course, Minnesota, and then on, but we've had issues with it being on time performance issues. So two somewhat related, but unrelated as well.
Senator, thank you for that question. Yes, I don't have terms to express how strongly I feel about how there are so many places in the United States where we know there is demand for rail service and where that capacity doesn't exist. That is an absolute priority, and the IIJA gives us finally the capital and the facility and the resources to do something about that. We think there are many, many communities that are underserved from a rail standpoint. Some are major metropolitan areas that surprisingly have very little or no rail service from intercity passenger rail. And many, as you suggest, are rural communities where, frankly, unless there is Amtrak service, there are really no other options for them. Aviation is not an option for many of these communities. These are population bases which may not have access to ability to move around in other forms. So we believe that the map for Amtrak needs to be redrawn to reflect what the population of the United States looks like in 2023, and not what it looked like in 1971 when Amtrak inherited assets from defunct railroads. So we think there is an enormous amount of opportunity that's driven by demand. In order to achieve that level of service, we will need a number of things to happen. First and foremost, and I fully expect everyone should hold Amtrak accountable for using the resources that we have, for being intelligent about the decisions we make, for doing our homework and making sure that we are planning these routes in a way that intelligently captures where demand is and what the best service frequencies are. But we're also going to need help from others. Our state partners are going to play a vital role in this. We can't do this without them. It is a partnership, and we have to learn to be good partners, as do they, and we all have to work together, and there are many instances where we've already done that. We also need a lot of cooperation from the host railroads. As you know, once we're off the Northeast Corridor and certain other limited parts of the country, we are tenants on railroads that are owned by the Class I railroads. It is entirely possible to operate an efficient supply chain, freight capacity, and passenger rail at the same time. We can do both of these things.
Thank you.
That's something we have to do.
Is there another point you want to make? Because I wanted to turn to something else.
I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, great. I really appreciate it. Mr. Brown, NTSB, thank you. I know that your grandparents were killed in a car accident. I have made distracted driving a major priority of mine in the Senate. I think you know the numbers, which are incredibly scary. Could you talk about the importance of continuing a focus on distracted driving?
Yes, thank you, Senator, for that question. I think one of the things we need to do is just eliminate distracted driving. Part of it is distracted driving is those drivers who aren't paying attention to their tasks. The issue is continue to use cell phones, iPads, and so I think part of it is just eliminating it. Don't use those electronics. If we can get all states to agree to do away with those electronics, I think that would be a big help. The NTSB, as you know, is big on focusing on safety, and I think that's one of the things they talked about in their recommendation.
Okay, one last thing. As you may have heard, we've had a couple of close calls with train derailments in Minnesota. We have had derailments. One was very close by a town and 20 cars down. And I have to say that not only did the rail company get their people there the next morning to clean up, unlike Ohio, the substance was ethanol and it burned off in the fire. As well as didn't get into the ground. But I will say NTSB investigators were some of the first on the scene and did an incredible job Could you just quickly tell me how Congress can help ensure NTSB is able to more effectively determine the causes of accidents and recommend safety improvements that could prevent such accidents from occurring in the future?
Well, I think the safety management system would be a great way to continue to do that, but also resources. I think one of the things that the board is really focused on is really having a robust 21st century a staff that is fully staffed and have the resources so they can compete with the challenging technologies that are out there to continue to help make America safe.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.